It wasn't plundered gold, nor was it the blood and sweat of slaves. It was urine. Yes, the very excrement that we flush down the sewer every day. In the 1st century AD, when the Roman Empire faced the desperate situation of national bankruptcy due to the insane extravagance of the previous emperor, a new emperor of humble origins did not choose to wage war to plunder wealth, nor did he choose to default on debts. Instead, he turned his gaze to the dark corners of Rome, to those gutters flowing with murky yellow water. In his eyes, this wasn't waste. It was a liquid asset that had been underestimated by everyone. Enduring the ridicule of the entire world, he built the first commercial empire of body fluids in human history. Who was he? He was the CEO of ancient Rome, the Muleteer despised by the aristocracy, and the only man who dared to hold up a gold coin covered in grime and tell the world, money doesn't stink. He was Vespasian. Today, we are going to peel back the golden outer layer of Rome's glorious history and take you to see its commercial core, which reeks of ammonia. The story we are telling is not just about an emperor, but a business legend involving bankruptcy reorganization, resource monopoly, and extreme pragmatism. Welcome to this episode, the Urine Tycoon of the Roman Empire. The bag holder, a 40 billion mess. To understand the logic of this business, we must first understand the market landscape of that time. Let's go back to 69 AD. In Roman history, this year has a terrifying name, the Year of the Four Emperors. As the name suggests, Rome changed emperors 4 times within a single year. This is like a Fortune 500 company undergoing 4 bloody boardroom coups in just 12 months. The first 3 emperors, Galba, Otho, and Vitellius, were either assassinated or committed suicide. Why? Because the seat was a hot potato. The culprit behind this was the famous tyrant, Nero. He was the madman who allegedly played the fiddle while Rome burned. During his reign, Nero squandered the treasury that Rome had accumulated over hundreds of years. He built the extremely luxurious Domus Aurea, Golden House, held parties that lasted for hundreds of days, and to maintain his expenses, he even began to debase the currency, creating vicious inflation. When Nero finally slit his throat in suicide amidst betrayal and desertion, what he left to his successor was a desperate balance sheet. Historical records state that when Vespasian finally climbed onto the throne from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, the Minister of Finance, trembling, handed him a report. The report showed that to keep the empire running normally, the treasury needed 40 billion sesterces. What is the concept of 40 billion? At that time, the annual salary of an ordinary Roman soldier was about 900 sesterces. This sum was equivalent to the annual wages of 44 million soldiers. And what was the total population of the Roman Empire at that time? This was an astronomical figure. It is equivalent to the US government today announcing a default on its national debt, while Wall Street collapses entirely and the Federal Reserve's vault doesn't have a single brick of gold left. At this time, Rome was in a state of panic. The legions in the eastern provinces were demanding pay, the poor in Rome were demanding bread, and in the Senate, those nobles in clean robes were eyeing this new emperor with skepticism. They had reason to doubt, because Vespasian didn't look like an emperor at all. This brings us to the key to our story. Why was it him, of all people, who came up with the bizarre idea of a urine tax? This has a fatal connection to his background. The Muleteer, the CEO who was scared of poverty. Vespasian was not a rich second generation born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Unlike the members of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, who were as prominent as the Kennedy family, Vespasian was a typical self-made founder. His grandfather was a tax collector, and his father was a loan shark. By his generation, although he barely managed to get into the system, He always carried a lingering, petty bourgeois air. Before becoming emperor, his most famous nickname was the Muleteer. Why? Because early in his career as an official, he was so poor that to make a living, he actually had to resort to trading mules to make money. Can you imagine? A high-ranking Roman official haggling in the livestock market after work. In the noble circles of that time, where money was viewed as dirt, this was an absolute joke. It is said that once, while serving in North Africa, because his governance was too harsh, which actually meant he was too stingy, the furious locals actually threw turnips at him. But he didn't care. It was exactly this experience of struggling at the bottom and haggling over every penny in the vegetable market that shaped his ruthless commercial intuition. He was like a wolf raised in the wilderness, with an extremely keen sense for resources. In the eyes of other emperors, power was for enjoyment. In Vespasian's eyes, power was for monetization. He understood one truth deeply: dignity without money is worthless. When he looked at that report with the 40 billion deficit, he didn't panic like the previous emperors. He took out the abacus he used when selling mules and, like a modern turnaround specialist, began to examine every corner of the empire with a magnifying glass. He was looking for assets that everyone else had ignored, assets that could not only stop the bleeding, but also generate blood. Soon, his gaze locked onto those inconspicuous clay pots in the streets and alleys of Rome. He smelled a scent. To ordinary people, it was a stench, but to this muleteer, it was the smell of money. Liquid ammonia, the undervalued industrial gold. Now, let's do some hardcore science. Why urine? In the eyes of modern people, urine is waste. But in the ancient world before the birth of the chemical industry, urine, especially stale urine that had been sitting for a while, was an extremely precious chemical raw material. The scientific principle behind this is simple. Human urine contains a large amount of urea. When urine is exposed to air and ferments, the urea decomposes into ammonia. Ammonia is a strongly alkaline substance. In that era, without soap, detergent, or chemical bleach, ammonia was a cure-all. What Vespasian saw was not a toilet, but a massive B2B, business-to-business, market with rigid demand. This market was mainly composed of two pillar industries. 1. Rome's fashion industry, the fullers, Fullonica. Ancient Romans were like modern New Yorkers, possessing extreme misophobia and vanity. The standard dress for a Roman citizen was the toga, and it had to be pure white. But in the dusty city of Rome, keeping a wool toga snow white was almost impossible. Thus, dry cleaners came into being. Ancient Roman laundry workers were called fullers. Their workflow was as follows: throw dirty clothes into huge clay vats, pour in collected stale urine, and then workers would jump into the vats and trample the clothes with their feet. The ammonia would react with the grease on the wool, saponification reaction, which not only removed oil, but also acted as a powerful bleaching agent. Clothes washed in urine, when dried in the sun, were blindingly white. This was the only way for Roman senators to maintain their respectability. 2. Rome's military-industrial complex, the tanning industry. The Roman Empire was built on its army, and the army needed vast amounts of leather, soldiers' armor, shield covers, sandals, horse harnesses. To turn raw hide into leather, it must be tanned, and the most effective softener and hair remover at the time was urine. Soaking raw hides in urine could remove hair and residual flesh, making the leather soft and durable. Without urine, the Roman legions would have to fight barefoot. Besides this, it was highly efficient nitrogen fertilizer for agriculture, and even, this might make you nauseous, it was used as a teeth whitener. The Roman poet Catullus once wrote a poem mocking certain people for having mouths full of the smell of urine, just to have whiter teeth. This was a huge industrial chain. In this chain, the fullers and tanners made money hand over fist. They were the industrial tycoons of that era, living in mansions, keeping slaves, and possessing immense political influence. But before Vespasian's reform, this industry had a huge bug. The raw material was free. The fullers only needed to send a few slaves to place some large jars on street corners, and passers-by would donate their urine for free for the sake of convenience. They acquired raw materials at almost zero cost, and then sold cleaning services at a high price. This is like an oil company being able to scoop oil from the ground for free, yet selling it to consumers for $100 a barrel. Vespasian looked at this industry report like he was looking at a leaking water pipe. He slammed the table and made a decision. Since you are making money using the state's urine, then hand over the profits. Commercial methods. How to tax toilets? Vespasian's methods were brilliant. He didn't directly charge ordinary people a peeing fee. That would be too stupid and would lead to people urinating everywhere in the city, or even incite riots. He applied modern tax thinking. Tax the downstream supply chain.
He promulgated a new decree, Vectigal Urine, the urine tax. The decree stipulated, all excrement in public toilets within Rome immediately becomes state property. Any enterprise wishing to collect this excrement, fullers, tanners, must purchase a franchise right from the treasury. Fees are charged by the barrel, fair trade for all. This was a brilliant move of leveraging force. For ordinary citizens, life didn't change at all. They still used the toilet for free. In fact, because the government paid to renovate public toilet facilities to ensure product quality, citizens felt the environment had improved. For the fullers, although costs increased, because this was a rigid necessity, they had to obediently pay up, or pass the cost on to those noble consumers who could afford white robes. You see, in the end, the ones paying the bill were actually those nobles who had looked down on Vespasian. This was simply a perfect redistribution of wealth. Besides the urine tax, Vespasian took this spirit of squeezing to the extreme. To fill the 40 billion hole, he practically turned making money into an art form. Selling offices. Since everyone wants to be an official, let's put a price tag on it. Fishing for law enforcement. The sponge strategy. This was a very dark method. Historical records state that Vespasian would intentionally promote extremely greedy officials, putting them in positions rich with oil. When these officials had scraped enough of the people's wealth, soaking it up like a sponge absorbs water, Vespasian would suddenly arrest them in the name of anti-corruption, confiscating their entire family properties for the state. He jokingly called these corrupt officials sponges. Soak them when dry, squeeze them out when full. Fighting for every inch of land. He resurveyed the empire's land and reclaimed a vast amount of public land that had been illegally occupied. All of Rome groaned under his high pressure. People gave him even nastier nicknames and made up jokes about his stinginess. In the street theaters of Rome, clowns even wore masks mimicking the emperor picking up coins from a trash heap. This public pressure finally reached inside the palace, detonating that famous conflict between father and son. Clash of ideologies. Does money stink? The protagonist of this conflict was Vespasian's eldest son, Titus. Titus was the complete opposite of his father. If Vespasian was the shrewd merchant haggling in the market,
then Titus was the perfect idol who grew up in the spotlight. He was young, handsome, had distinguished military service, and cared extremely about reputation and decency. He was groomed as the future emperor, and his circle of friends consisted of those elegant-speaking elites. When the urine tax was promulgated, Titus had a breakdown. His friends mocked him at banquets. "Hey, I heard your dad is now the biggest toilet manager in all of Rome?" Titus couldn't take it anymore. He stormed into his father's office. The historian Suetonius recorded this scene vividly. This was not a simple family quarrel. It was Mars and Earth colliding, two values clashing. Titus angrily questioned, "Father, are we really so short of money that it has come to this? Taxing urine? Look at what people outside are saying about us. This is an insult to the dignity of the royal family. We are the heirs of Augustus, not manure collectors." Vespasian sat behind a desk covered in ledgers, looking at this idealistic son who didn't know the price of rice and wood. He didn't get angry, nor did he preach some grand macroeconomic theory. He made a move. He reached into a bag on the table, a bag he had just received from a tax collector, containing the first batch of urine tax collected, and grabbed a handful of gold coins. They were aureus, the highest denomination in Rome. In the dim candlelight, the gold coins emitted a charming and heavy luster. Vespasian stood up, walked over to his son, and shoved the handful of gold coins right under Titus's nose. "Scicitans num odore offenderetur," he asked coldly. "Smell it, son. Does it stink?" Titus was forced to take a breath. It was the smell of metal, the smell of wealth. He shook his head in confusion and answered honestly, "Non olet." No, it has no smell. Vespasian revealed that wily smile of one who has seen through the world. He spoke the sentence that deserves to be carved on the gates of every business school. "Atqui elotio est." And yet it comes from urine. "Pecunia non olet." Money doesn't stink. This phrase is extremely vulgar, yet extremely profound. Like a scalpel, it sliced through all hypocritical moral appearances. Vespasian was telling his son, profit is profit, whether its source is silk, spices, or filth from the sewer. As long as it has been baptized by the market and transformed by power into gold coins, it is pure, and it represents power.
For an empire on the verge of collapse, moral cleanliness is an expensive luxury, while survival is the only necessity. If we don't collect this money, the legions on the border will mutiny, and Rome will fall into a sea of fire again. At that time, where will your dignity be? Titus fell silent. In that moment, perhaps he truly understood what ruling meant. The legacy. Glory built on filth. Relying on this extreme, open source and cost-cutting and shameless scraping, Vespasian achieved what everyone thought was impossible. In his 10 years on the throne, he not only filled the massive 40 billion debt hole left by Nero, but also miraculously left a huge fiscal surplus. So, what did he do with this smelly money? Did he build a golden palace for himself like Nero? Did he hoard it like a miser? No. He wanted to launder this money. He wanted to turn this wealth from the sewers into Rome's most dazzling glory. He launched the largest public works program in Roman history. He bulldozed Nero's Golden House, and on those ruins, broke ground on a massive building unprecedented in history, the Flavian Amphitheater. Yes, this is what we call the Colosseum today. This is a huge historical irony, and also a perfect commercial loop.
You can imagine the scene. On the day the Colosseum opened, thousands of Roman citizens sat in the stands cheering, beasts roaring, gladiators fighting. And behind all this grandeur, every stone, every wage paid to the workers, likely came from those inconspicuous urine jars on the streets of Rome. Vespasian used the humblest means to buy the greatest miracle. To this day, if you travel to Italy, France, or Turkey, you will find that public street toilets are sometimes still called Vespasiano or Vespasienne. People name toilets after this emperor. Perhaps this is mockery from later generations. But to Vespasian in the netherworld, this might be the highest praise, because it proves that his business model is still running 2,000 years later. Having told the story to this point, do you still think this is just a bizarre anecdote about urine? No. This is a story about insight. In the business world, there are no humble industries, only humble perceptions. Most people see garbage, but a tycoon sees a supply chain. Most people smell a stench, but Vespasian smelled opportunity. Most people miss opportunities because of face, but true winners know that you have to get your hands dirty first to clean up the empire. Perhaps the greatest lesson Vespasian's story offers modern people is this. When you are in a desperate situation, facing bankruptcy or a low point in life, drop your useless pride. Go look for those corners ignored by others. Go pick up those coins that others disdain. Because as that Roman emperor proved, as long as the money is earned through skill, it never stinks. This is your channel name. If you like this kind of content that deconstructs history through the lens of money, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for watching.
Tell me in the comments section, what other invisible businesses exist in modern society that are like the urine tax, sounding low-end, but actually hugely profitable?